If you want to know how the Trump administration is really doing in its first 100 days, including all of its policies that have been going down in flames in front of federal judges, up to over 120 injunctions of one type or another, look at his now losing record at the United States Supreme Court and then the impact that it may be having on Donald Trump rethinking and changing his position of disobeying the United States Supreme Court. On Unprecedented, our show that I do with Dina once a week here on Legal AF, we look at all things United States Supreme Court. And particularly in this clip, we look at the impact of two back-to-back rulings by the United States Supreme Court against the Trump administration, one 7-2, the other 9-0, and its impact on Donald Trump's position on immigration, deportation, and removal. Are we seeing the worm turn? Are we starting to see Donald Trump, having been hit in the head with a 2x4 several times by the Supreme Court, starting to reverse course? We cover it all on Unprecedented, and here's a clip. So everybody knows already, because it happened last Saturday, that at 1 a.m., 12:51 a.m. to be precise, the United States Supreme Court did something they don't generally do. They issued an order that didn't relate to somebody like facing the death penalty. And 9 justices got together, and 7 of them said to Donald Trump, stop, not like stop Vladimir, stop Putin, but which just seems to be Donald Trump's foreign policy. But it was like, just stop. Don't deport anybody. Don't. Let's figure out what notice and due process you gave, what you're supposed to give under the Fifth Amendment. We don't trust you is sort of the underlying current of this 1 a.m. order. And it seems to have had an impact on the Trump administration in some positions they've been taking with the Abrego Garcia case. And now we got a brand new, just to touch on it, brand new class action filed by the American Civil Liberties Union. I just did a hot take on it here for Legal AF, in which they're going, all right, 1 a.m. order, we see you. We see what you're all about. What about the 137 people that got shipped off to El Salvador without all of that? Why is it just Abrego Garcia that gets to come home or has an order that Trump has to facilitate his removal and release from an El Salvadorian prison? What about our other 137 other clients? Remember, we always said those poor bastards. I'm not making comments about their criminal status. I'm just saying they didn't get notice in due process. What about them?
Yeah.
That's what that case is. So walk the audience through sort of what's happened, like the ripple effect of that decision on the heels of the Fourth Circuit's decision written by Judge Wilkinson, which was excoriating of Donald Trump 2 days earlier. Boom, boom, and then where we are now. Just shows you how the Supreme Court does, and then Donald Trump has to react.
Absolutely. And it was interesting because our last episode, we talked about how Trump was taunting the Supreme Court, right? And it was interesting also in your intro right now where you said it wasn't facing the death penalty, but it really is, isn't it? These people are being sent to this concentration camp in El Salvador, never to be released again. And Trump made that so clear by saying, I can't get this person out again, right? So the Supreme Court knew if you were going to have due process, you'd have to stop the planes. And they were effectively giving these people a death sentence. Trump had admitted that. And before we go into it too much, I just want to briefly talk about Alito's dissent. He was the 2, there's 7. It was a 7-2 decision. Alito and Thomas were the only ones.
Came out a few days later. Sure. Tell the audience.
Came out a few days later because it's interesting. He calls it unprecedented. I think he's been listening to us. But it was hard to.
Sam Alito.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the support. We've been calling the Supreme Court unprecedented for a very different reason. But he, it's nothing substantive. He doesn't say anything about it. Like, they actually don't deserve due process. It's all, this isn't the right jurisdiction to file. We should be getting briefed first. I mean, these planes are going to take off.
What's the rush? Yeah, they're in their upright locked position, these guys.
Yeah. And these are his arguments. They were almost laughable. The fact that he thought that they were acting too quickly. That was essentially his argument, that they were acting too quickly. And we know what happens when those planes take off. he says, when the court rule rushed to enter its order, it was a rush to enter its order. The Court of Appeals was considering the issue of emergency relief, and we were informed that a decision would be forthcoming. This court, however, refused to wait, right? This is what he's so upset about.
By the way, to complete the thought, the Fifth Circuit denied it. So now we're standing on ceremony about timing and procedure.
Exactly. You know? This is like effectively a death penalty for these people, and you're standing on procedure and timing, and Alito with a straight face tries to act like this is a normal situation, and they have the luxury of time, and they're acting with a good partner like Trump, who's going to actually care about things like jurisdiction procedure.
Come on, Dina, you're not being fair. Remember the last time a president sent people without due process to a foreign country's jail? Remember what happened then? No, it never happened.
No, exactly.
And it's never going to happen once Trump's out of office.
I know, but that's not what he finds unprecedented. He finds a 1 a.m. ruling somehow having gone beyond the capacity of the Supreme Court. Like, thank goodness they acted quickly for once. So he just really talks about with a straight face how they shouldn't be acting in such an imminent fashion, which, we all know what happens. So that's where we are. It's just
but wait, before you leave, even he says the last line or two. He says the judiciary has to play by the rules, but so does the executive branch, who needs to comply with our commands. So even he, Alito, threw a little Trump. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're heading, this is not a fight you can win politically or legally. Don't do it. And then we had a whole change in the Abrego Garcia case off of that, because right after that, because I think the Trump administration wasn't expecting the 1-2 punch of Judge Wilkinson and the 7-2 decision against them on the heels of the 9-0 decision against them in the Abrego Garcia case. And they came back to Abrego Garcia, and they told the opposing lawyers, we are currently working on diplomatic channels to try to get Abrego Garcia back. And the two parties filed something that after the judge looked at it, Zinnis, she said, I'm going to give you guys another week and put a cloak over the process, right? No more, you don't have to send me reports every day. You don't have to do discovery. You got till the 30th. I did a hot take on this. I think she's cloaked this to allow for diplomacy. I'm not saying she's negotiating to get back, but they've told her it's delicate right now. We're working on it. We don't, and even the Abrego Garcia lawyers, the ACLU is like, we don't need to have them daily report. We just need them to do the things they've represented that they're doing. And she's probably like, all right, on that representation, which has been sealed. So you see how Donald Trump has taken it to the limit, but right on the edge, he's started to walk back a little bit.
And so many people in their comments on, when we talk about the Supreme Court in general, is like, what does it matter? They can't force him to comply, but he did comply. He did not send those planes. And I think actually a big part of that was just what happened with Judge Boasberg, how he said there was probable cause to have.
That's a good point.
Criminal contempt. And those officials know it's not going to be Trump that goes in front of a court with probable cause with a criminal contempt. It's going to be the lower level officials, as it always is with Trump. And so you don't even know, was there a discussion at some level of what to do about it? But with that going on at the same time, are you really going to be the official to give the go order after a Supreme Court says
that's
that?
A very good
you're
missing piece.
Into court.
Yeah, that's a very good missing piece that you mentioned about if you do the timeline, right? It's criminal contempt, even though stayed by the intermediary appellate court, Wilkinson, Fourth Circuit, then Supreme Court, 1 a.m. And now we've got we got a sea change. It's not stopping their political rhetoric for cheap political gain out here, but in the courtroom and in the courthouses, we're starting to see, because even though we don't want to see how far Donald Trump will go, Donald Trump and the people around him don't want to find out what would happen if they did disobey the United States Supreme Court. Like who knocks on their door with a sidearm. I don't think they want to find that out.
Right. They don't want to find that out. And maybe Trump would be willing to, but you have to expect some career officials there also to be willing to. And that might be the stopgap, at least for now.
And the polling keeps him reined in, because his
truth.
poll numbers, when Fox News has to run a piece that Donald Trump then attacks that says only 44% of Americans approve Donald Trump, and it's been a 7-point drop in the last month. And he's a loser, favorability, unfavorability rating, right down the line, even on immigration. And separate polling in the same week that said that the majority of America, vast majority, would want to have him impeached and removed if he disobeyed the United States Supreme Court. So he overplayed his hand about people's disrespect for the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And they realized that that is where the rubber meets the road for people in our patriotism. And so I think all of those things coming in made him unhappy. The economy being in the shitter, him being told he's causing a recession. He switched gears there. He went hog wild to attack judges and the Supreme Court and do things that were unprecedented. And now I got a reverse course here. It's the same guy, same erratic person that's controlled by whoever speaks to him last, what the polls say, what cable news show he's watching. This is how he runs a government. Welcome back. Legal AF, the YouTube channel, a companion to Legal AF, the podcast. I've been doing that podcast for over 5 years, one of the co-founders with Ben Meiselas. And then right before the election, we created Legal AF, the YouTube channel, Legal AF MTN. You're here. Our next goal is to get this channel to 1 million subscribers before our 1-year birthday. We're getting close. We're going to go over 600,000 this coming week, and it's all because of you. And there's a reason for it. By subscribing for free, it helps us build the channel, bring on new contributors, bring on new programming, like Unprecedented. And that's the way to show your solidarity and support with what we do. Take a moment, hit the subscribe button. I look forward to my next reporting with Dina on Unprecedented. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.